Okay, my fellow Americans, I'm back with you. I'm still alive. I don't know how much longer I'll be alive, but I'm still alive. I don't want you're going to see pictures of Rush Limbaugh and Glenn Beck and Bill O'Reilly. I don't want you to think I'm followers of them. I had their thoughts back when I was 19 years old. I was fighting a war in Vietnam. I was a Marine, and I was in a special unit, and I started calling in artillery missions, and they denied them because they said they were near religious shrines. At that point, 19 years old, I knew there was something wrong with this government. How can you fight a war with all these stupid regulations? You know, a war is a war, and it only has to be fought when your life is at stake. And my life was at stake out there, and they wanted me not to fire the mission because of some politician who said you can't destroy religious shrines. I'm going to talk to you mostly about false premise, but I'm going to re-show you the Joseph Schultz story. And the reason why I'm going to probably show this many times, there's a lot of lessons to learn from it. It should be taught in junior high school, and college, but it's not. It used to be shown in colleges in the 70s as a morality thing, but not just because it's an analogy to me, Joseph Schultz and I, but the men shooting him are the American, Machiavellian communists. They really are. I mean, they're that evil, but they don't realize it because they think it's for the good of the all. Just like this sergeant who orders him to go ahead because he wouldn't shoot the Jews to go ahead. So look at it, play it over and over. There's a lot of lessons to be learned there. But let me teach you about. I briefly mentioned false premises, and this is what they do. Lawyers win cases on false premises. Okay. What I told you was a law that's made believable, and the reason why it's made believable is there's certain truths to it. So I'm going to try to teach you how to recognize these, because you can't get people in the office that give you false premises, or you shouldn't have teachers that give you false premises. Okay, if I was to tell you that that you weighed less when you're over water and when you're standing over land, and I said the reason why is because the water is denser and it causes the magnetic lines of flux in the earth to change, so you're not as heavy. That's a false premise, but it's somewhat believable, or can be believable to some people, because obviously you float in water and you don't float over the earth, but it's obviously a false premise. Let me give you the biggest. I'm trying to teach you how to recognize a false premise. It's obviously a lie. You weigh the same over water as you do over ground or anywhere on Earth. You weigh the same. Okay, now, the biggest false premise is global warming. First of all, why do some of these scientists say that they agree with Gore and everything? Well, they agree with him because when you have a PhD, in order to get money, you need government grants. There are other grants, but most of them are government grants. So, you want a government grant, you'll agree with some obnoxious premise. Why is it erroneous and why is it false? Well, first of all, the Earth has been around for well over 100 million years, and to take a snapshot of like a few seconds, I hope my voice is over this. I'm showing this because I'm showing you how intellectually you can solve problems, not violently. So here's these people that are basically presenting false premises of global warming, Gore being the first and major one. Okay, why is it a false premise? Well, first of all, it's a snapshot. You can't correlate time-wise. It's just an erroneous premise scientifically to take 20 years of recording of global warming or global freezing, it doesn't matter, and gauge that over a lifespan of 100 million years. It's just ridiculous. Think about it. The second thing is that there's nothing that we can do. This Earth was formed by volcanoes. One volcano going off emits more gas and hydrocarbons than all the planes and garbage that's burned and everything else. It's just erroneous. We don't know if there's false premise. But instead, we don't know that it exists. But instead, if you think about it, if they wanted to do something, say, okay, maybe this is true, maybe it isn't true. But here's something we can do to help the situation of the Earth, global warming and oxygen production. Plant trees. The government wants to give billions away for all these control programs. They give millions away for planting trees. Give the trees free. Go to a tree orchard and get your trees and plant them. Trees transform carbon dioxide and carbon type products into oxygen. Of course, the Brazilians are killing off the rainforest, but we can counteract that by planting trees. Intellectuality. Okay, now,
let's get to work. Let's lay it
if you keep giving false premises that are partially true, but overall they're incorrect, this is what you have, the American government. You can see more proof of this and watch shows like Boston Legal, which I like, but they get both sides of it. Here's Denny Crane that comes back with the existential aspect. He gets I don't know if everybody saw the episode. He gets a criminal that he has to represent, and the criminal tells him he raped and killed this woman, and so he shoots the guy. Well, that's not real justice. You should just go over to the court and the judge and say, look, this man is guilty, and guilty as charged, and give him the maximum penalties. That's justice. Of course, I feel like shooting him too. Okay, other shows like Raising the Bar, this new show that's on cable TV, it's the same thing. They just present false premise after false premise, and the criminal, maybe only serves 1 year when he should have served 10 years, or he gets off, or etc., etc. What does that say? That teaches the population of criminals that they can get away with it. I don't care the premise why somebody did something. If they had a crime, they should have an absolute penalty. And then crime will start diminishing and diminishing. Okay, I'm trying to show you a little bit the goodness of life too. Okay, false premises go on, and they start with a man named Karl Marx. Everybody, you get all different views of communism, etc., etc. But the fact is, if you go back to your history books, accurate ones, and read, Karl Marx theorized that, and he just theorized, remember, here was his basic premise: thesis, antithesis, synthesis, and this is involving a growth of governments. So Democrats have one thesis and the Republicans have an antithesis. They either war verbally or war with guns, and they come out with a synthesis. And then that new synthesis becomes a thesis, and there's an and it eventually leads to utopia. Of course, the problem with it, the whole thing, thesis, antithesis, synthesis, is a false premise, because in that development, it always occurs as more and more governmental control, less and less freedoms. And as I told you before, it's human nature to have freedom. When you restrict their freedoms, you cause serious problems in evolution. So, false premise, Karl Marx, wherever you are. Okay. But it sounds good to a lot of educated people, by the way. And, you may go through that cycle too, when you've been educated or will be educated. Okay. What am I going to talk about? I have so much to tell you. I look at my notes. I don't know where to go sometimes. Another false premise that you can identify. I'm just trying to teach you to observe false premises. Anytime you use a law, it's 1,000 pages, 1,100 pages, which, this new healthcare law, which is absurd and ridiculous and makes me sick. When they make it 1,000 pages, they make all kinds of other control elements in it. For instance, get a copy of it, read it, and somewhere in the middle, it states that they want to control your bank accounts. What does that have to do with? Well, they justify it by saying if you don't pay into this program, they can come take the money out of your bank accounts. See what I mean? How dangerous false premises are? Okay. And again, it always reflects back to lawyers. The lawyers are taught to present false premises to win their point. Remember, they have nothing to do with justice as the original system was set up. They only have to do with winning. Winning. Okay, I got a few minutes left, and I don't even have a few minutes left. I'm going to start telling you more and more about the Islamic problem, slowly. It's probably going to kill me, but I'm going to have to tell you about it. And the Islamic problem is a war against religion. Remember, I told you that. You don't win a war against religion with police actions, and that's what we're trying to do. It will never, ever work. I'm showing you these men, by the way. These men know all these facts. They don't tell it to you as is because they're frightened of the government or they're frightened to lose their position. Just remember that. But if you